It is certainly an interesting time in the Pac-12 and an interesting time at Arizona State for a number of things going on the field, first and foremost, and possibly off the field. We got Michelle Gardner of Arizona Republic. Michelle joins us on a fairly regular basis to break down the Sun Devils. Michelle, how you doing?
I'm great.
So we will start with Kenny Dillingham because he is the youngest coach in the country, and he lands a Power 5 job in a major conference at a place that is used to winning in the past. So it's a great opportunity for him. And we've just seen such dramatic changes in approach and personalities with Todd Graham to Herm Edwards. And now we've got Kenny Dillingham. And so what are your impressions?
The man's got passion. The man's got an enthusiasm. His energy's off the charts. It's one of those things where it's contagious. And I mean, it's, you can talk the talk, but he walks the walk, and he very much is that energetic, passionate, all in guy that you've probably seen in press conferences or heard. And, you go from Herm, again, an older guy, maybe, I hate to say, out of touch with the younger dynamic and the student athlete nowadays, to somebody that's not that far removed from playing.
So I bring up the Arizona State situation because it intrigues me for so many different reasons. Again, the youngest coach in the Power 5, and I believe all of college football. And then we've got, of course, we will get to all the would-be drama involving the Pac-12 and what could happen and all those things. And then on top of that, we've got a wide open quarterback battle, at least based on what I see at the current time. And then we've got this drama coming in with Jaden Rashada. Not necessarily that there's drama at Arizona State, but previous drama with him and his involvement with Miami. And then, of course, the deal that went down there at Florida. So dealing with the quarterback situation and what's going on the field with, you've got two incoming transfers from Notre Dame and BYU. Where do we stand on this quarterback position?
Well, if the season were to start tomorrow, and it doesn't, I still think it's Trenton Bourguet, who ended the season as the quarterback last year and really did a pretty good job, all things considered. We've all been a little bit underwhelmed, I want to say, by Drew Pine. You figure a guy from Notre Dame comes in and he's going to be the guy. Maybe it's just being in a new setting. I can't say it's a new system because they're all in a new system. They're all playing under Kenny Dillingham and Bo Baldwin for the first time. So it's not like there's an advantage there one way or another. So I think it's Bourguet right now. That doesn't mean that it'll be Bourguet in 3 or 4 months. But right now, I still think he's the guy, and he gives them the best chance to win.
This team won 3 games last year, but it's a whole new start for just about everybody. And so as you look across both sides of the field in regards to offense and defense, what are the big question marks? What were the narratives during spring practice for 15 sessions in regards to what needs to dramatically change and improve?
Well, the strong point of this team, no doubt, is going to be the wide receiving core. You got a guy like Elijah Badger that really came into his own last year. Geo Sanders to a lesser degree. I think Jalen Conyers is going to be one of the best tight ends in college football. And I think the new offense is tailor suited for a guy like him. So, and then the other guy that nobody really knew much about that was outstanding, maybe the best player on offense during spring ball, is Xavier Guillory, Idaho State transfer, and he's a wide receiver. So, and then another guy that has looked really good is the transfer O'Meary, who came from Texas and was just injury plagued. He's looked good too. So, and Melquan Stovall from Colorado State, another wide receiver transfer. So they've got an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiving position. To me, the biggest question is, can they keep the quarterback upright? Because the biggest question mark is going to be the offensive line. There's no doubt there. Ben Coleman, who is a transfer from Cal, and he was going to be a starter at guard. He's probably going to be out for the season with a lower leg injury. So that's a guy that was supposed to start. Then they've got 2 other transfer linemen in Aaron Frost and Bram Walden, and they were out for good chunks of the spring, not with injuries that seemed like they were going to be, major ones, but still they didn't participate much of spring. So that's 3 probable offensive starters that they didn't have during the spring. So that's the biggest question mark. And going back to the quarterback, I think that's where Trenton Bourguet, if you've got an offensive line situation, is the better option because he makes quick decisions, quick reads, and he gets rid of the ball really fast. Like he's got one of the quickest releases in college football. So if you can't have offensive linemen that are going to be able to hold their blocks, you better have a quarterback that can make a quick decision and get rid of the ball, because maybe you can, help that situation with the offensive line. So that's where I'm looking at as far as the offensive side of the ball.
Michelle Gardner joining us from Arizona Republic. You see her Twitter handle right there. You can join her right there and follow her work to the Arizona Republic. Has Dillingham giving any indication as to how active they expect to be in the transfer portal?
Very. They're not done yet. He pretty much said last week that they need offensive line help. The other 2 places I think they need help are defensive tackle and linebacker. I think that those are both positions that they're going to be in the hunt. They had 3 defensive tackles enter the transfer portal yesterday, 3. And it was a questionable position to begin with. Now, those 3 players, 2 of them played, well, one played not at all. One played 3 games. One played sparingly in 9 games. So it's not like they were going to be starters, but I think one of those players had a pretty good shot at coming in and playing a lot. So I think defensive tackle is huge. I think they're going to be okay at the starting linebackers. They got a transfer from Washington State in Travion Brown, who I wrote about. That story will be up later this week. He's looked really good, but I still think they need more linebackers. So I think defensively, they need defensive tackles and they need linebackers. And as far as the portal goes, there's no doubt they're on the hunt for offensive line.
All right, Michelle, the overarching topic in college football is realignment. And we saw Oklahoma and Texas make their move 2 summers ago. Last summer, it was USC, UCLA, which obviously put the Pac-12 in a certain situation in regards to losing its number 1 brand and losing its number 1 market. And then a other top 3 to 4 brand in UCLA in the conference. All right. So what we know since then is obviously that Pac-12 is the one conference in the Power 5 that's still working on a media rights deal. For a long time, we expected that to come anytime soon. We saw some reports out of ESPN that, based on their sources, that this is probably going to be a deal that is going to be announced sometime in the summer. All right. Then the most of the rhetoric that's coming out obviously involves the Big 12, and their commissioner, Brett Yormark, has been very upfront about wanting to build the league and continue to expand. And then you've got the 4 corner schools, which would be Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, as being the ones that seem to be the most targeted, the most talked about. And then we hear various rhetoric out of the presidents that is mostly 90+% committed to the Pac-12, looking forward to a rights deal that's competitive and saying that we're going to have a league going forward and we're going to be here, but also leaving the door open to speculation about, well, we do talk and we do keep those conversations open. And if things don't fall the right way, there is a possibility always of something happening. So where do you stand on all of this in regards to what you expect and what you think the real signals are that are valid versus a lot of smoke out there?
It just depends on who you're talking to on what day, really. And it's almost gives me a headache just thinking about it. At the end of the day,
Sorry to give you that headache today.
So I think at the end of the day, I still think you're looking at the teams in the Pac-12 staying in the Pac-12 and adding schools, with the high probability of it being San Diego State and SMU. I mean, I wouldn't hate that. I mean, when you look at what San Diego State did in basketball, it gives you a California market. I still think that's not a bad option. San Diego State's obviously, they're very good in basketball, and they're usually more than respectable at football. And we know those are the 2 sports that drive the gravy train, so to speak. So, and I don't think adding the Dallas market would be a bad thing either. When I look from a selfish standpoint, I don't want to be in the Big 12. those are hard cities to get to. I think we get spoiled in the Pac-12 because it's relatively easy travel to get from one school to another. And I don't know some of those. I actually talked to a reporter friend of mine that covers Oklahoma State when ASU played Oklahoma State. And she said, traveling in that conference is a bitch, just getting from the schools. It's not like they're in major metropolitan cities. And we know air travel is not fun nowadays anyway. So from a selfish standpoint, I don't want to be trying to get to those hole in the wall type of cities. And I kind of like the Pac-12 the way it is. And I think if you can bring in those two schools, I don't think a Fresno State is ideal. And I don't know that, I think UNLV makes sense, but it's probably not ideal either. So, and obviously Boise State, I don't think they have the media market that's going to drive the train here. I don't think that they're that desirable of a fit. So I think it just makes more sense for it to be San Diego State and SMU if they're going to add schools.
Yeah, and with these new additions in the Big 12, it's going to really add the air mileage on for the teams in particular and the media as well. Although it's not necessarily too difficult to get to Orlando, Florida, or Cincinnati, Ohio in particular, or Houston. BYU might be a little bit of a different matter, but
it's time consuming though.
Yes.
It's easy as getting on one plane and not having to, having a nonstop flight and you're somewhere fast, and I still think when you look at that, if you're going from Orlando, Florida to Stillwater, Oklahoma, that's a long trip, not just for we that cover the teams, but the teams too. I mean, aren't we in this for the student athletes and the student athlete experience, like the NCAA likes to say? And you're still adding more hours to their trips, and especially in the sports where it's not just one game a week. So, I don't think that's ideal either.
How are the people that you talk to on a regular basis, whether that's media or the fan responses that you get on the various social media platforms, how did they respond to USC and UCLA's decision?
I've seen it both ways. It's like people are a little bit tired of the conference cowering to UCLA and USC. For instance, I think it was last year, the sports information directors, for instance, kind of canvassed the media and said, this was when we went from COVID and we were going back to having a media day. And sports information directors called us all and said, look, they want to go back to in-person media days. If we have it, where do you want to have it, LA or Vegas? Everybody to a person said Las Vegas. So what does the Pac-12 do? Move it to LA, because they wanted to have all that LA media there. And I've heard that there have been a lot of other decisions that have kind of always gone in the favor of UCLA and USC, and that the conference has always, bended forward to help those two schools and whatnot. And maybe you have to. That's your brand schools. I mean, let's face it, the Pac-12 does better when UCLA is relevant in men's basketball and USC is relevant in football. So maybe that's a little bit of a jealousy on the part of other schools too. But, some people say good riddance, let them leave. And maybe it's a fair fight for everybody else now. And especially when you look at what USC has done with collectives and the players they've landed from other schools, most people are just like, let them go and let's just go.
Good stuff from Michelle Gardner. You can catch her work on the Arizona Republic. You see her Twitter handle there below. Michelle, appreciate you stopping by, breaking down ASU for us.
Anytime.